Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's talk, Licensing and Accreditation. The DroneTech Innovation Showcase is the first event in a series of events brought to you by the Saldanha Bay Innovation Campus, an initiative of the Saldanha Bay Industrial Developmental Zone. These events include these DroneTech Talks, an entrepreneur bootcamp, and a Game of Thrones pitching event, all leading up to our first Innovation Day. Please follow the Saldanha Bay Industrial Developmental Zone on LinkedIn for more information, or drop your details in the chat and our team will add you to the mailing list. Just before we start, some few housekeeping points from our end. Your mics have been muted for the duration of the session. Please send your questions through in the Q&A box once and the Q&A sessions begins, or raise your hands to ask your questions to the speaker directly. The host will alternate questions between the raised hands and the Q&A box. There is also a poll at the end. If you can please provide us with feedback about the session. My name is Refilwe Ledwaba and I will be your host for this session, and let the interview begin. Khanyisile, welcome and congratulations to all your achievements. My first question to you, how did you become interested in drones?
Hi, Refilwe. It's so nice to be talking to you. Hi, everyone. So it was not really a long journey. I just went to the Genesis Hub, and that's where I met Mr. Charles Illenfeld and Sean Reitz, and they gave us a brief description of what the industry and the drone is about. When I got home that night, though, I did my research, and I was amazed by the technology. And one that stood out the most for me was a Matrice 300 DJI. You know, it has vision sensors, it has wind resistance over 15 kilometers per hour. And when I went thorough with my research, my love for aviation grew immensely, from the understanding of airspaces, the systematic order, you know, the construction of flights. I was just intrigued and my hunger just grew more. So yeah, that's how I fell in love with drones.
Wow, that is fascinating. But it also goes to show that, you know, the information out there and research is quite important. And I'm glad you're part of the industry. And can you share a little on the project you're working on and what a typical day looks like for you?
So this program is facilitated by the Years for Youth, and it is sponsored by Transnet with collaboration with the Arpas Training Academy. Its aim is to give 20 students, to be exposed in a working environment for 12 months. And that's where I was given the skills to conduct in the drone industry. And a typical day would be an early morning to get ready for a brief meeting that we do via Teams, due to COVID regulations. And we communicate about the tasks for the day and the previous day. After the meeting, you head to the office to pack the equipment, fill in the paperwork. You head to site, you collect the data that you need. You come back to the office, you edit the data. And by the time you're done, it's already after 5 p.m. So yeah, that's what a typical day would look like.
Wow, that's fascinating. And can you just give us like an example of a task that you would normally do? Just one example.
So we would capture blasts for mines. So the blaster would tell you what they want. They would tell you what they would look for in the video. Let's say maybe if you capturing an overburdened blast, they will tell you that they want to focus on the overcasting, like how the expose will go, and then you have to give them that. You need to know where you position your drone, how the altitude should be, and then you give the client what they want. So yeah, that's normally what we do.
Sounds like a long but exciting day.
Yeah, it is. It's quite fun, actually.
It's fun, eh?
Yeah.
So what would then be the qualities of a good drone pilot, or just a drone pilot, a competent drone pilot? What would be the qualities?
I'd say a good PIC, a good pilot in command, should always be responsible. They should have accountability with a good measure of airmanship, like meaning which would be a good use of judgment, well-developed skills to accomplish a safe, objective flight. I'd say they should have good communication skills. They should be excellent when it comes to planning and navigating, especially for failures, because, something always happens with these drones, technical problems. So you should always be ready on how to maneuver with obstacles around. So I'd say those are my 3 points. Yeah.
Have you ever had any failures that you had to deal with?
It happened yesterday, actually. It wasn't really a failure. So we were at a moment where we capture a blast. So the minute they do a countdown, then it's late. You have to position your drone and you have to put it in a direction where they can have the whole view of the whole blast. My gimbal started pacing up and down. And, at that moment, you have to know what to do. So I had to calibrate the gimbal, to make everything okay. But we did capture the blast, and it involves teamwork. That's why I say when you need communication skills to become a good PIC, because you have to communicate and put teamwork effort. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I like the fact that you're highlighting, the soft skills, because sometimes we talk a lot about the technical skills, and we ignore the communication and the team skills, which are actually quite important. Wow, that's amazing. And let's talk about, the regulations and touch a little bit on that. Take us through the process of registering as a drone pilot, your process of becoming a pilot. What did you have to go through to qualify and get your license?
So to the process of registering as a drone pilot, you have to train with a flight school that has been approved by the Civil Aviation Authority. In my case, it was the ARPA's Training Academy. You need a Class 3 medical certificate, theoretical and practical classes, class exams on subjects like aero, human factors, radio telephony, physics of flights, meteorology, flight planning, a lot more. You must get a restricted radio license and final exam that is conducted by the South African Civil Aviation Authority, a designated ARPAS examiner, which in short is a DRE. You present the ops pack so that they can test your knowledge regarding aviation and emergency condition. Also in the industry, we are also required to undergo the course called Remotely Piloted Aircraft System Aviation Security Awareness, which is ARPA's asset. It is a criminal record check for ROC ops, as well as dangerous goods course. So yeah, those are the things you undergo to become a commercial drone pilot. And once you have those, you can work as a commercial drone pilot, but you will still need to be required to be linked and work under a company that has a remotely operated aircraft system operating certificate, which is a ROC. So everything is CAA.
Yes. I know the journey of CAA.
Yes.
And how long was that whole process? I mean, you went through a whole lot of things. How long was the process?
It took me plus minus 12 months. Yes. I think by end of September, it's going for my 12th month, and I still need to undergo my Beyond Visual Line of Sight course. So here it's all about learning. It never stops.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that the 12-month include your your on-the-job training, not actually.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing. There's always a question about a commercial flying and leisure flying, because drones are accessible.
True.
Any person can go and buy them. And I just want you to just maybe tell the audience as well, what is then the difference in terms of the regulation required for a commercial drone operator and a recreational, or just for leisure?
Okay, I'd say because with some pilot training schools, they do have shortened courses for leisure and hobbyists, and they aim to teach people where it is legal and where it is not legal to fly. They create awareness on flying responsibly. But for commercial drone pilot license, the course is more intense. It contains the subject that is required by the SACAR, as I have mentioned previously. And normally for a hobby drone pilot, they will not fly in controlled airspaces. They will not fly closer than 50 meters from people, buildings, public roads. They cannot fly within 10 kilometers from an airport. Hobby pilots will always have to require a visual line of sight. They always have to see their drone, and they only have to fly in daytime. Well, with us, the commercial drone pilots, those cases may change. Sometimes the nature of the work will require us to fly inside a controlled airspace, closer to buildings, people. So we are given the safe operations to operate these things. We are taught them, we are trained to do them, and we have the required equipment to safely conduct these flights. And we can also operate at night, which is the beyond visual line of sight. And these conditions, provided we are trained, and our RPL license and ROC we fly under is endorsed by the CAA for us to fly in these conditions.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think that's quite important. So, to just put it simply, the leisure drone pilot doesn't have to have an RPA, right? And then, but when you fly commercially, you have to have a RPL,
yes,
license, and then your company will dictate the kind of operations that you're going to be doing
under the ROC. Yes, true.
And I think one of the other things that you highlight is the importance of the leisure drones, people that are flying leisurely, to actually do get some form of information and education as well as to how they can do it legally as well.
Yes, true. Because they always have to abide by law. So yeah.
Wow. Amazing. And then with the licensing as well. So what form of licensing accreditation is needed for commercial drones to operate legally? So it ties to the previous conversation as well.
Yeah, it does. It does. I can also add that the drone must only be operated by a licensed pilot that has the endorsement rating for the type of drone. For example, if I have trained in a multi-rotor or fixed wing, then I only have to fly that piloted license. And the rating, the VLOS, which I said is the visual line of sight, where you have to see your drone. The EVLOS, which is the extended visual line of sight, where you can have a spotter. You fly the drone meters away from 500 meters away from you. You have the spotter that can see your drone, and BVLOS, where you can use your controller to fly your drone when you don't really see it. And comparing it to an instrumental flight drone, you use instruments to fly the aircraft. It's like a BVLOS type of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So another question for me. So now that you've got your license, or even anybody that gets their RPL license, and you're certified to fly, can you just take your drone and go and fly anywhere?
Can you repeat that again, please? Sorry.
Can you take your own drone and just go and fly anywhere, because now you are a licensed pilot? Can you do that? Are you allowed to do that?
I mean, to some extent, but the ROC will always guide you. The company's ROC will always guide you on the limits you have in your flying, So yes, you can, but you have to understand the limits that you might have, like maybe being 400 feet above ground level and 500 away from you. So you always have to understand the limitations that you have as a pilot if you don't fly under any ROC.
ROC. Yeah. Oh, okay. So you have to fly under ROC. So I can't just take my drone and just go and decide to take my neighbor's pictures and say, you know what, because I'm licensed now.
Because the ROC will guide you. The ROC will guide you, yes. So I'd say flying under an ROC is very important.
It's it's how it should be done, right?
Yes, it's exactly how it should be done.
Because when I was doing my license, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna, get my license and just go and start taking pictures, and and that was not the case.
And it's ROC is important. Yes, you need it. You need to fly under an ROC.
So the other question: are there any limitations regarding the use of drones in South Africa? What do you see as the major limitations?
I'd say for a leisure flying drone, you must maintain, as I said, a visual line, obtain a landowner permission, and you can fly in daytime, which is also below 400 feet above ground level. And you will not be allowed to fly further than 500 meters from yourself. And then for the commercial drone, it is ROC dependent again. The aircraft needs to be registered, the weight and balance, you need to have strobe lights, the certificate of registration, and very much more. Commercial pilots must only fly the types of aircraft they are trained in, as I said again, and according to the skills they endorsed in their license. And the most important elements regarding the use of drones will always be safety of the operation and the permission to operate, authorities to sanction the flights. Also, additionally, I'll add this, in South Africa, the use of swarm technology is still not fully legal. So we still must abide to one controller and one drone. So we can't bind two aircrafts to one controller. It's still not legal here. So there are limitations for sure.
For sure. Wow, awesome. Yeah. And what do you like most about this industry, the drone tech industry? What have you enjoyed the most?
I'd say the growth for me is, amazing, because you learn, you are at a point where you learn about the drone technology, and then you have to also learn how the drone affects other industries, like in a good way. For instance, when it comes to mines, you see there and you realize how important your job is as a drone pilot to this person, because you have to even calculate the distance of the equipment they use from the blast, because if anything could go wrong, someone would lose their life. They could lose thousands of money because we couldn't calculate, the distance in a proper way. So I'd say the vitality of drones in these industries is very mind-blowing, and I love everything about it. It allows you to grow and learn more. So yeah.
That's amazing. And if there are young people on the call or young people that will access this footage later, what would you say to them that they need to do to prepare for, like taking up your career to be you one day?
I'd say, like, be a sponge, make sure to absorb each and every information you get. It's going to be a lot, but it's very, it helps you grow. It helps you become a better version of yourself, because you learn a lot of information, you learn how to maneuver with other industries, and it develops you for the better. So I'd say be a sponge, learn, and don't get tired of the learning, because it betters you. I tell them that. And go for it. Please go for it. Don't let anything stop you. Go for it.
Definitely. I love to agree with you that. And what does the future hold for you? Well, what are your plans?
So I'm at a point where I just want to acquire skills that are for, again, like better me for the better. I want to, learn. I want to make sure that my journey actually helps another person. To whoever is sitting there at home not knowing what to do, they should understand that a girl from Soweto did it, and she's here and she's acquiring all the skills that she needs, and you can do it. So that's where I am. I just want to grow in the industry and take everything that comes my way.
That is just amazing. And just the last question for me before we open up for the Q&A, how do people get into the program that you had an opportunity to get into?
So with YES, I don't know if they're gonna have another program like this, but with YES, you can just Google it on any point. It's YES for Youth. You Google it, you find out about it. And for ARPA's Training Academy, you can just also Google that. You can find all the information you need. And yeah, you can access all the way from there, because I think they provide you with the information you need.
Wow. Khanyisile, you've been having such an amazing journey, and I'm sure some of the young people that are watching or that will be able to watch the footage later, they will be very, very inspired about your journey, and I just love your enthusiasm, and what an awesome addition to the aviation industry. So I'm just going to open it up now for the Q&A. The first question, I think we can probably both answer that. It says, to Refilwe, given our current situation in South Africa and the slump in the aviation industry due to COVID-19, do you think that commercial drone operations can be a cost-effective way to assist with rebuilding the aviation industry?
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Did you get the question?
Please say again, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can
definitely can you repeat the question again? I'm so sorry about that.
Not a problem at all. It says, given the current situation in South Africa and the slump in the aviation industry due to COVID-19, do you think that commercial drone operations can be a cost-effective way to assist with the rebuilding of the aviation industry? I will also comment on that, but I'm going to give you.
Okay. I'd say I believe that like it could happen. I think it has the potential to happen because, you know, with drones, it's not just the skills learning to fly. You have to understand aviation, the regulation, and I can add that with aviation, safety comes first. So anything that will require safety, I think, yes, the drone industry has the potential to help with that. What do you think, Refilwe?
Khanyisile, I'll have to agree with you. I mean, given the impact of the COVID-19 on the, on the industry, I think one of the, I wouldn't call it an upside, but one thing that came out is the emergence of the drone industry. Because I think before then, we didn't really look at some of the like uses as applied to different industry, and now it has become very important and cost effective. And just to give you an example, Shah is, you know, helicopter flying is very expensive, and most of the functions that a helicopter does, and some of them Khanyisile has, you know, has mentioned them as well, can be done by, you know, helicopters, can be done by, you know, they can do other functions. So I see it as a way of rebuilding, and I see it as a way as well of, there's a lot of employment that is the industry starting to create. And I think in yesterday's session, we spoke about it, and Khanyisile as well spoke about it. Some of the regulations obviously need to be looked at to make sure that the industry even open up more, so it can give young people like Khanyisile even a more chance to get into these more programs and be able to, you know, to add to the recovery of the industry.
Yes.
And Khanyisile, this is your question from Shah, and the question is, can you describe your experience of the Genesis Hub and what other programs they have?
So my experience there was just amazing. You know, I developed really good relationships there, and the people around, you know, it's young people, everyone's full of energy, everyone's hungry for opportunity, and I'd say they have culinary, they have IT, they have aquaponics there, they have, what else am I forgetting? Blossom. It's a lot of programs, and, you know, it's just helping youth. It's helping youth develop and get like as much as experience as they can get. So I think, yeah, my experience has been wonderful. Wonderful. Wow. Yeah.
That's awesome. So if there's a youth listening on this call or later on, they need to actually try to access the Genesis Hub and access a lot of more opportunities. And we've got a question. Let's see if there is, I don't see any raised hands, so I'll just take the questions from the chat. What do companies with ROCs charge to utilize their certificates? Additionally, what are the requirements to utilize a company's ROC? I can, Khanyisile, you can go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was about to say that with the ROC, I think it has to, the CAA comes to renew and recheck the ROC every after a year, if not 12. Yeah, I think it's 12 months. I'm not sure quite about that. So I think I was about to say that, Refilwe, maybe you could add more on that, because I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
Yes, so just to add on what you've just said, it depends on the ROC, you know, if you're gonna work under the certificate, and obviously there's certain regulations that they need to be adhered with within the, you know, within that ROC. I think Khanyisile did mention some of the few aspects of when you fly under an ROC, that they have to do the security checks, they have to do a whole lot of things. So it's not just, you know, you just walking into an ROC and said, you know what, I want to fly under you. It's a long process that they need to go through as well, for you to be able to work under them. And in terms of the charge, I think it's the ROC. It depends what the ROC want to, what the agreement is. And then the second question is, additionally, what are the requirements to utilize companies' ROC? So on CAA's website, I don't think there's anything specific. And again, it depends what is it for and what does it entail. Can you just go and say, I want to utilize an ROC? Can somebody just wake up and say, let me utilize your ROC? Or is there a process that you can be integrated in their operations in such a way that you could, you could be one of the people that to utilize some of their, some of their services? So I think to get a clear answer on both the questions, I would refer you to the CAA website, number one, and number two, it will be just a conversation that you will need to have with the ROC to understand how they do their operations and how what will be the requirements for you to work under them. And I hope that will answer your questions, but I think the CAA website will be the best place. Sure. And then the next question is your license applicable internationally, and does it have an expiry date?
So I'd say SACA, the South African Civil Aviation Authority, is part of the International Civil Aviation Organization, but one would still go and check local ALOs of the country that I might be based. So to answer that, and does it expire? So yes, there is a point where I have to meet with the DRE again to re-examine my skills and qualities and my aviation background through emergencies and ops packs. So yeah. And my license must be refreshed every after 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that, Khanyisile. And I just want to also, I'll add on to that in terms of the license being applicable internationally. So each and every country, just like Khanyisile had said, they've got their own laws and rules. So you are going to need to read about that specific country rules and laws and how they can validate your license. So there's different agreements that different countries have, and they will be able to let you know if you want to fly under the FAA in the US, how do you then, validate your South African license? You might have to go through extra exams. You might have to take probably a flight test. So it all depends. There are some countries, I know African countries, that do accept South African license without going through extra training or extra documentation, but you have to just read up on their Civil Aviation Authority website, what would be the requirements for you to fly using a South African license in their country. Okay, I see we don't have any more questions, and I don't see any raised hands. Khanyisile, is there anything else that you would like to add in terms of the regulations?
I'd say, with the regulations, having awareness on them is really important. So we might have mentioned a few, but, visiting the CAA website and, recognizing yourself with the regulation is very important, because you need to understand and abide by the law with your flying so that you can have a responsible and effective flight. So I'd say it doesn't stop. Just always visit the CAA. It's my best friend even. So yeah, you must always visit and try and understand everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's good advice. And I think from my side, just the last question, you've mentioned earlier that, when you were mentioning on the job training, with the mining, have you had any other experience in any other industry except the mining industry when you were doing on the job training?
So because there's 20 of us, they've secluded us in different sections. I'd say with my peers, they're already doing night security. They fly the drones at night, to have surveillance on power line stations. So I'm also going to get the experience very soon when I'm done with my day operations. So I tell you guys all about it, but I still need to experience it. But I'd say it's different sectors. And yeah, so that's why I always say be a sponge and try and absorb everything you go around with. So we also have night security where people fly surveillances for power line inspections or security for power lines. So yeah, it goes on and on.
Amazing. And just, I think I'll add a few more because, when I speak to you, something, some of the other things sort of just come up. You know,
Yeah.
when you were training, like
Mhm.
you were the actual training, when you were doing your theory and you were doing your
Yes.
practicals, what was your favorite part of the training?
I have to say it was learning about the Q codes because they really, I'd sit there and be like, okay, because they confuse me. But now that I understand them, I enjoy it. So I say the Q codes parts was my favorite part when it comes to theory. Yes.
So that's from the radio license, right?
Yes, that's from the radio license.
Because I know a lot of people that are doing their drone license, they always refer back to the, to the radio license as well.
Yes, it's very challenging, super
Yeah.
challenging. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think one of the other things we always, emphasize on, science, technology, engineering, and maths. How was your background? Can somebody with who doesn't have sort of that background be able to, finish and cope with the course? What is your background?
Yes, definitely. Because with me, before I had been enrolled in this program, I was actually doing media studies and journalism. Um, very different, very different routes, but I'm learning because, I took my skills from research there and applied them to this program. And I'd say researching and familiarizing yourself with everything that has to do with the drone industry, the aviation industry, mine industry. Just do your research. Like, make sure you learn, you understand, you ask questions. I always ask the pilots that have been here for a long time questions. They even run away from me at this point. So just ask, familiarize yourself with everything. Then I think from there, it doesn't matter what your background is. If you learn, you're gonna get it.
Wow, that is exciting. And just like I'm looking at, just like you mentioning media and studies and journalism, can you
Yes.
see drones being applied in that industry as well?
Yes,
Like
for
given now your
sure.
experience.
For sure, because with a drone, you can even take a riot. Maybe if there's a riot, you can do that. Or maybe if you can see that it's getting out of hand, you have the drone to apply for evidence. You can help the police, it can help the civilians. It can do a lot. So I'd say yes, for sure.
Okay, awesome. I've got a remark from Shao, an awesome remark. The South African Drone Council was recently established to form part of the lobby groups to negotiate and assist with creating drone infrastructure and help evolve regulations to enable the drone environment to be accessible to more people. Yeah, and Shao, we couldn't agree with you more because we think it's quite important for that to happen in the country, and that will definitely open up more opportunities for people like Khanyisile to experience the industry and to one day go out there, innovate, and open up their own companies, or use perhaps even use the skills that you've learned now in the media and the journalism industry, which is, I think it's just quite fascinating that you came from the industry and then to the drone to the drone industry. Yeah. And then Khanyisile, just another maybe like in a way question, what do you think we could do, especially, I was quite fascinated earlier on when you said that you didn't know about anything about the drone industry, you came across it and then you started doing research. What do you think can be done to make sure that young people knows about these carriers, especially people in young people in the rural area? How can we increase that reach?
Refilwe, that's a very good question, actually. I'd say have like more advertisement, share more knowledge, give them more awareness when it comes to the drone industry, because as you said, not everyone really knows about it. So I'd say awareness would be the good key to go about it. Advertisement, I'd say everyone watches TV, so I'd say that would be good. And also to visit those rural areas, visit the schools there, the primary schools, the high schools, make kids aware. A girl that's doing matric right now that doesn't even know there's a drone industry there, present the project to her and make her see how she can develop in this and grow within it. So I'd say that, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Khanyisile, this has just been a wonderful, wonderful session with you. I think we've learned so much about, the regulations, and I think most importantly, your story, because, that saying, you have to see it, you have to hear it to be it. And for the young girls and even the young boys, out there listening to your story, seeing, what you have done in the year, all the support and even the resources that are currently available, whether it's Genesis, all the flight schools that are available to, that got you from, from where you are, where you were and where you are now. And you're just talking so confidently about passionately about the industry, and really thank you for this interview. And I think it's gonna really do a lot in the industry. Is there any other questions before we close? We don't have any questions in the Q&A, and I don't see any hands raised. Just check. No, I don't see any hands raised. Khanyisile will have her details, so you can contact her if you've got any questions. You can also, contact me as well if you've got any questions. Remember, we're gonna post now a poll at the end of the session. Please make sure that you do fill it in. And thank you really for your participation in the session. And we're looking forward to having you join us for our Entrepreneur Bootcamp on the 9th of September, 2021. And really thank you very much to our important guest, Khanyisile.
Thank you, Refilwe. I must add that it's been an honor to talk to you. I read your biography and I was so inspired. So thank you for being a great host. Thank you for inspiring us to do more and reach out for more. And also the SBM IDZ Innovations Campus, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been so great. Thank you.
Just one, we've got one more question in the box before we just close. You had to, one of Shao made a comment as well, during your training, you had to practice as well with flying a toy drone. So how do a toy compare to the real thing? That was the question from,
Also, yes, I flew a Tai Chi drone. Those things, they really taught me a lot. So you see, with flying a real drone, a real aircraft, I'd say it's much easier because it has GPS modes, it's much controllable, But with the Tai Chi drones, the toy drones, they were really hard to fly or maneuver with because it's all in your input, the input you must place in. And it was like an ATI mode thing going on. So you had to put small inputs, try and stabilize it, but it would never do that. But yeah, it has taught me quite a lot. And it was hard to fly, very frustrating, but it taught us a lot and it made us be great, actually. Because now when we fly the real things, it's quite easier.
Wow, that's amazing. It also reminds me of the manned aviation, with helicopters. A 22 is like an R22 is like you have to put everything, all the input, and then you go to like very sophisticated helicopter, then it makes it easier, which is quite interesting in terms of the training. In terms of the training, it's actually quite interesting where, when you start training with something harder, when you come to the real thing, that sometimes it's easier. It's quite important. I think the questions are coming, so I am still going to open it up because we still have more time. Okay. So one of the questions from Itumeleng is saying, how are aquaponics and IT related to drones program? I think saying that you were talking about the Genesis program.
Oh, no, I was mentioning that at the Genesis Hub, there were different programs, which were aquaponics was one of them, IT was one of them, the Drone Academy was one of them. But to answer your questions, actually drones can, make remarkable ways when it comes to aquaponics because, it's like agriculture. Drones can spray around. There's a lot of drones that do a lot of functions. They can spray around water in an efficient time. They can collect data when it comes to which spinach maybe is not growing immensely good using the technology of cameras and everything. So yeah, they can play a role. They can definitely play a role. but I was just mentioning different programs at the Genesis Hub. Yes.
Thanks, Khanyisile.
Thank you.
Yeah, since there's not a lot of more questions and we have done the conclusions as well, thank you very much for joining us for the session.
Thank you, Refilwe. Thank you, Refilwe.